What's up guys, Tech and Tyler, and today I'm going to show you a General Electric 201 SA 175 watt Mercury Vapor Street Light. Now, I already made a video about one of these, but this is a different one that I have, and this one's actually quite different in some ways. That's pretty interesting versus the other one. So we're going to look at both of these, and we're going to compare the differences between the two of them and just kind of talk about it and show the interesting different little details about them. So this is the second one that I have, whereas this is the one that I made the video about. Now, as you can tell right off the bat, a big difference about the two of these is the fact that this one's actually painted. It's painted with some sort of like gray paint that looks like primer, whereas this one's just bare metal, bare aluminum. But if you look at the sides of this too, the shape of this one versus the shape of this one, it's quite different actually. Whereas the bottom of this is just flat all the way across, this one actually goes at an angle for the bracket, so it's kind of a bigger end, but it's not as low versus how this one is, where it's lower than this one, but the arm like piece is actually a little smaller on this one. So that's kind of interesting. And you could also probably tell too, the shape of the sides of it are different as well. Like this one has these little like notches in the casting, whereas this is more of just like a flat spot here. And even just small other little differences, like where the ground screw here is and the ground screw here, these have on like the left side of it have like a little curve right here, and then there's the ground screw on this side, where the ground screw on this side, and it's more just like a straight angle that goes into the curve here, which is quite different. And if I flip them over, if we get a top view of these, as you can tell, the sockets for the photocells are the exact same, but this one has like the little nub on the top of it, whereas this one's flat, but it has the same top shape where it's got these little screw points for the ballast and the same shape on the top. So the top portion of it is almost identical, but if we get a front angle of it, you can see the height of where the photocell socket sits here is kind of short versus where this one, it's quite a bit longer. And that's also because if you look at where the arm goes, the openings are a little different, where this opening has more of a thicker metal piece in the top here, whereas this is more thinner and more actually curved, more smooth, versus this has like angles to it right here. And another interesting fact too about where the arm goes as well is the fact that it still has the little like steps here on this one to angle it at a certain, if you wanted to have it higher up. This one has the same thing, but the walls where the arm sit at are different. So this one has more of an opening, and then the two thin pieces of metal here, whereas this one is more of a solid, bigger piece with a smaller opening. So I thought that was kind of different. But if you look, the little brackets are the same, pretty much the exact same shape. Bolt pattern is the exact same. Even like I said, where the ground goes there, ground goes here in the exact same spot. And if you look in this one, you can see that it's got, you know, the two holes right here and right here, which would be for a different bracket for the socket, versus whereas this one is on like a piece of metal bent to sit at a certain height. You can probably just put a flat piece of metal going across it if it was a different design. For like the internals, if you're going to put like a different, like I guess ballast kit with a different socket inside of it. This one has the exact same thing. The only difference between this one is the placement's practically the same. It's just these are a smidgen different, and I wonder if that was because of the fact of they designed it to where you can put a clip-on refractor, or put one that had the screw holes in it and you just screwed it to the face of it, which is possible. And that's what I was mentioning about, if you had a different kit for this, a different bracket, because if you were to screw a screwable refractor on this one, it's not going to sit all the way because of this bar. But how flat this bar is, it would probably work for this one, which I'm not a huge fan of those ones where you have to like screw the refractor onto the fixture, like the store-bought cheap ones. I like the ones that clip on and off because it's more commercial and you can interchange them. Another big difference that you can tell too is the actual bracket design for the socket. This is just a metal, a bent metal bracket that just goes across to the sides here. And this one has, the same idea where you can screw it to those little spots right here. But this one, they designed it to where this metal piece right here is what holds the socket. Now, this one I completely took apart, rewired it, cleaned it, just like how I did this one. But this fixture, for some reason, had a plastic socket on it, which I am not a fan of those plastic ones. I know that GE, for some reason, decided to use those around in the 70s, 80s, I believe, especially with those, like, not commercial, more store-bought ones. And I just never thought that was, I never liked that idea of the plastic socket because these things get hot. These bulbs get really hot. So having, a plastic socket, which it could be fiberglass or some sort of heat-resistant material, I'm still not a huge fan of those because they always break also. Like, these will break too because they're porcelain ceramic, but those other ones, I've come across too many lights where it had the plastic ones in them and they're just cracked and chunks are broken off of them. And the construction of the inside of the socket I wasn't a fan of either, so I completely changed this out and put a ceramic socket on it, which was kind of hard to do because you have to have a particular socket that will work with this bracket. Plus this bracket's also quite flimsy, which I'm not a huge fan of, because it just gets held down by a screw right there and a screw right down there. But the ballast that's in this one is the exact same ballast that would have been inside of this one, but as I mentioned in the other video, the ballast that was in this one was broken. I repaired it and I'm using it in another light and put a different ballast in this one because of, the fitment of it. But the ballast that's in this one's original. Now I got this light local to me from a guy who had some on some rental properties and then he took them down, replaced them with LED and was selling these. So I've bought a couple of lights from him, but this one was pretty cool because this one also had with it a short arm that would be on the back of here that only came out to about here, one of those like stubby 2-bolt arms that would have hung on like a pole, which makes me really wonder if this one is a more store-bought version, whereas this is actually commercial from the power company, whereas this one you could have bought in the store back then, which would have been pretty interesting. I'm not too sure about that. Maybe somebody who knows about that could comment about that, but I think this was more of a store-bought and they based the design off of this one but changed it because this one is older. Because if you also look on the back of here, like I was saying about the logo and the sockets for the photocells, they're both the exact same photocell sockets, but it's got the stamp on it right here, which this one doesn't have. This has no stamps, no markings on it that tell you it's a GE besides the ballast that was probably in it, if the sticker was still good on it. But the only indication of it telling you it's a GE is the actual photocell socket on the top of it, like this one. And this one actually has a stamp on it, so this tells you right away that this is a GE without looking at this. So I'm kind of wondering if this was like the original idea for this one and it was kind of more of like a store-bought brand, because like I said, these lights, or at least this one, is from the maybe 90s, early 2000s. I'm kind of curious if this is from the 70s. Now, I'm not too sure. Maybe somebody can date it for me and let me know. But I think this one's from the 70s because it has this stamp in it. Because I have another light, but that one's an actual NEMA head. And that one's from, I believe, the 70s from what I got told. And that one has this stamp on it as well. So I'm kind of wondering if this is 70s, maybe 80s. I'm not too sure. But yeah, everything about this one is pretty much original, besides the socket, like I said, and then also changing out some wiring. And the biggest thing about this one is the wiring in here was also quite dry rotted, just like how the wiring in this one was. It was quite dry rotted. So I had to take it all out and replace wires with some newer ones with some clips on them, and just kind of redo the whole thing together, especially, you know, with the socket. Like I was saying, I had to put new wires on this because I had to find a particular socket to fit this bracket, so I had to make crimps for it to go on terminals for this, which I'm not a huge fan of when it comes to these, because I don't think this is pulse rated, but it's the only thing I had that would fit, so it works. I don't think necessarily these have to be pulse rated, but then again, pulse rating is also mainly for like metal halide type stuff, whereas this is Mercury, so it probably is fine. To me, if it's a mogul socket, it should be able to handle the power of these no problem, as long as they're the more commercial strength ones versus like ones you would see in like older floor lamps. But yeah, so this one, like I said, I took it completely apart, redid it. This thing works great. It's quite silent as well, just like this one's pretty silent, and even the ballast that was in this one I took out is also quite silent. So yeah, I'm gonna take this now and I will get this set up on the arm, and then I'll bring you back and show you it turning on. Alright, so now I have it on the arm. I have it all hooked up with a bulb in it and the bypass socket and a refractor on it, which this refractor I used on the other light as well, because I like to keep the whole idea of putting the parts that are made for these on. So General Electric refractor on there. I'm not too sure if this is the one that came with it or if this is the one that came off of one of the other lights that I made a video on, but I like to try to have, you know, the brands with the brands instead of mix matching it as much as possible. Sometimes you can't help that, but in this case, GE refractor on a GE fixture. So I have it all hooked up, like I said, so turn it on here. As you can see, comes right to life. Very quiet, not loud at all. In person you can hear it making the slightest hum, but overall it's pretty quiet. And the bulb that's inside of this is also a Sylvania bulb. I use that particularly to test these fixtures because I have so many Sylvania bulbs that I've gotten that I just like to have them for test ones and save the older ones, which I'll make videos on bulbs eventually of all the ones in my collection, and there's a lot of them, so plenty of bulbs to make videos about. But yeah, let me let this warm up to get to full brightness, and I'll bring you back and show you what it looks like at full brightness. So now we're at full brightness now. As you can tell, it's dimming out the camera a bit because of the fact that it's so bright, but it's at full brightness. And let me cut the switch off, and here we go. See it showing off in full brightness, lights everything up really nice, like every other light. The nice cool white Mercury Vapor color. Overall, I think this light's pretty cool just because of the fact that it's a 201 SA, but a little bit different of a 201 SA. So this one might have a different code, but the thing about this particular light is I've never really seen one of that style. So not too sure about it. I don't really know a lot of the history of the designs and what they're called and what years they come from, besides just the basic knowledge of what I can gather off of them. So if anybody knows possibly what the design is called of this one and the age of it, that'd be greatly appreciated. But yeah, overall, very unique, very different versus the other one I showed you, but not too different. But overall, just very nice little, you know, compact little light. Let me flip the light back on here. Yeah, overall just pretty neat, pretty different versus the other one in some aspects, but pretty much the same thing, just a little different. I think it's a little older versus the other one, and yeah, so keep a lookout for more videos on stuff like this, and just feel free to leave comments with any information you guys got on just anything I post about. Any information that y'all can share to me will be greatly appreciated to give me some more knowledge about these things. Like I was saying about like the dates of what they came out and the styles of what they're called, because I'm not too knowledgeable on that. But yeah, until next time though, I appreciate it so much, and thank you.